Hi everyone, this is Professor Jeff Wilkerson at Luther College again, talking to you about what you might be able to see in the night sky. This week we're going to talk about the week of October 19th, but of course it stretches for time beyond that. Some of the stuff we won't be able to see for very long. We're going to go back and talk about the planets again this week. We've talked about the planets a few times here, and you might have this past week heard a lot about Mars. Mars is very big and bright in the sky right now, and a lot about it being in opposition. And let's just point out what that means. If you've got the sun here, and the Earth is in orbit here, and Mars is in orbit here, then this orientation that we just drew, where things are in a line like this that connects the sun to Earth to Mars, we would say Mars is in opposition. Things that are in opposition are what we say are on the meridian at midnight. They're on the line that connects north to south directly overhead. That's the meridian. And at midnight means this is up all night for observing. So Mars is about as well placed for observing as it can get right now. And for a planet to be at opposition like that, it's as close to us as it ever gets in our relative orbits. Now, the orbits aren't circles. The orbits are squished a little bit. They have some eccentricity. So it depends on where Mars is. You know, if the sun is here, something with a big eccentricity looks like that, very flattened. And so you could imagine if it were that flattened. It's not, but if it were that flattened, it matters whether we're here or whether we're here, right? Very close here, very far away here. So this is a pretty good apparition of Mars, but they're all pretty good, to be honest with you, because of the relative orientation of the eccentricities. So the eccentricity of the Martian orbit is pretty close to a circle, but it's less like a circle. It's a little more flattened than, say, Jupiter or Saturn or Uranus or Neptune on out there maybe. So it's pretty, of the bright planets that you can see, it's pretty flattened. But still, if you were to look at that ellipse, you would barely be able to tell by your eye without doing measurements that it wasn't a circle. So the planetary orbits are pretty circular around the sun. We've been talking about the planets a lot because this has been a really good time to go out and look at planets. We've been seeing Venus in the morning sky. It's starting to go away right now, but we're also seeing Jupiter and Saturn we've talked about in the evening sky. So you go out just after dark right now and you see Jupiter and Saturn setting in the west. Okay, look south, and the brightest object to the south approaching the western horizon as we work our way through the rest of October 2020 here. You'll see Jupiter and Saturn getting closer and closer to the horizon. Jupiter being the brightest object, and Saturn the brightest object in the sky, as long as the moon's not there. And Saturn is pretty bright. Pluto is right in between them, right there. Up here is Mars. Mars is pretty far around the sky, but as it's getting dark now, Mars will be getting higher and higher and higher in the sky as we work our way through October. Go back and watch the video about why the stars rise 4 minutes earlier each night. Now the planets, the word planet is from the Greek for wanderer. So the planets do wander around the stars because of that orbiting we were just talking about. But they don't move much on a night-to-night basis. If you watch for a week or 2 weeks, as we've talked about in previous videos, sure, you're going to see a move, especially Mars and Venus. Maybe not so much Jupiter and Saturn. You'll see a move relative to the stars out there. But so Mars is up here, big, bright, and red in the sky. So if you look sort of south and east a little bit, it'll be the brightest object that direction. Brightest object south and toward the western horizon is Jupiter, and then the brightest object of the eastern horizon is Mars, unmistakably red. So between Mars and Saturn is Neptune, and then as you move on from Neptune to Mars, you get to Uranus on up higher in the sky, further east than Mars. And so it's really almost unmistakable to see how much of a line these things fall on, how you have a line that connects these. So when you look at this, that's also the path of the sun. The planets are in constellations that the sun would pass through, that you know as the signs of the zodiac. Neptune's in Aquarius right now. Mars is in Pisces. And so they follow the path of the sun around the sky. And as you follow this path of the sun around the sky, you realize you have to look in the direction where the sun would be all the time to see these planets. We did this activity in class just a couple of weeks ago, and just last week. And to say, if this is the path of the sun, you can't look up here to see the planets, and you can't look down here to see the planets. They follow this sort of straight line path across the sky like this, or a straight as a line as you'll get on a curved surface like the inner dome of the sky. But you have this linear path, not up here, not down here. And so that tells you, gives you a hint of the flattened nature of the solar system. We talk about the plane of the solar system, or the disk of the solar system. The planets exist in this flattened plane. So you'll see, if this is the sun, you'll see drawings like this of the planets in orbit around like this. Not all over. The orbits are around here. The orbits aren't up this direction or this direction or this direction. And so we can see, just by going out and observing right now, you can get a sense of the flattened nature of the solar system. All you see are Jupiter, Saturn, and Mars in the evening sky. But you can draw a line right through them, and I recommend you go out and try to do that. But if you have a telescope, Neptune and Uranus are not too hard to find in a telescope. Pluto's a little tricky. Pluto's right at the edge of a lot of telescopes. Very hard to see Pluto, and so you might struggle with that one just a little bit, but nonetheless, they're all right there in the evening sky for observing right now. Connect on around to the morning sky for Venus, and it's a great time to be observing planets. We said Pisces and Aquarius were the constellations Mars and Neptune were in, and when you got Mars, if you drop down and move to the right just a little bit, so go south and toward the west just a little bit, the first brightest star you come to is Dipta, and it's in Cetus. We might talk more about Cetus and some of the constellations of this region of the sky in the coming weeks. So this might be something for us to work on here. And then if you continue on down further south, you get in the very bright star Fomalhaut. And Fomalhaut is, for me, it's the southernmost star I can see with my naked eye without optical aid. It's bright enough that it can pull its way through the muck of the horizon. So all of the thick atmosphere that you see on the horizon that we've talked about a little bit before in other videos, and it's really hard to see down too far to the horizon, and you need a bright star to pull through there. Fomalhaut is that bright star that does that. It's in the constellation Pisces Austrinus, and so it's way down there. October's the time to see it. If you want to go out and see a really bright star shining, not as bright as Jupiter, not as bright as Mars, but a good bright star shining on the southern horizon, now's a good time to try it. A little bit later at night, maybe, as you go out towards 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night. You see Mars, drop down to Dipta, and on down to Fomalhaut, and see if you can see those stars out there. So that's what we got for you this week. Draw your line through the stars and see if you can see the flattened nature of the solar system, and look for the bright stars Dipta and Fomalhaut, and that's good. We'll keep watching the skies, and we will talk to you again next week.